Hey, beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. I guess you can call it a podcast, and we are back again. Yeah, your girl is kicking those videos out. I'm telling you, this day went by so fast because I feel like all I've been doing is watching something and doing a video. But anyway, we are here right now for the Real Housewives of Potomac. We're going to talk about season 6, episode 3, Jiminy Crickets. So the episode starts off with Robin's alarm clock going off, and she gets up real quick and she tells one of her sons that you have 3 minutes before class starts, and then she goes back to bed. And Juan comes in and he's like, well, is the other one up? And she's like, no, because I have like 2 minutes before his alarm goes off. And he's like, Robin, we already talked about this. So he tells her, you're basically giving them like 3 minutes to get ready and get logged on. And she says, I know, I'm sorry, it's the pandemic. And he's like, what? She's like, yeah, I just didn't think it would still be going on. And he says, you're always making excuses and you need to do better. And he walks out the room and he looks like he literally just woke up 2 seconds ago. And I'm like, dude, if you're awake, wake them up. What the hell? So Robin again just tells us that she's in this funk and it's hard for her to find motivation to get up and move around. She says she does do, school, cooking, basketball practice, yada yada, but it's hard for her to get motivated to really do something because the pandemic just has her down. We end the scene with Carter's teacher telling him, look, you got to make sure your mom wakes you up because this is your job right now and you got to take it seriously. And I'm like, yeah, because he's gonna be able to tell his mom to wake him up, right? Geez. But now we're at Karen's house and we see Ray moving a big old plan and he's struggling. He's like, ooh. And I'm like, Karen, he's 90. What do you have him doing? He's helping her set up for some sort of Zoom meeting. And she has him fixing lights and doing all this stuff. And you guys, I've noticed Ray is getting a lot of camera time. He must be on the payroll now because he has been in absolutely every single episode and he has a whole lot of speaking parts and everything. So Ray is another housewife, I guess. So LaDame is launching some glueless wigs and she's having a Zoom meeting with customers. And she tells them she is launching 2 different wigs. One of them, the name is Queen. I can't remember the other one's name, guys. But she's like, you can go from the boardroom to the bedroom. Tell him, Ray. And he's like, yeah, I can't get enough of Queen. Ugh. So Giselle and Ashley meet for lunch, and when Ashley gets there, she unbuttons her coat and her stomach pops out, and Giselle is like, oh my God, your stomach, I can't get used to it. And I'm like, we are so used to it because Ashley is constantly pregnant now. She's been pregnant the last 2 years, so what are you talking about? So they sit down. She asks her how she's going to be when she gives birth because apparently when she had Dean, she went into hibernation. Nobody heard from her really. She said, well, I can't really do that because I have another kid to consider this time. And she says, well, I have a nanny, so she's going to help, but still, I can't just totally do nothing. And Giselle says, well, how's that going to be? We're not going to have any issues, are we? Because I'm concerned about Michael. And she's just so out of line. How do you ask somebody, are you concerned that Michael is going to cheat with your nanny or whatever? And I'm like, Giselle is so inappropriate. But Ashley took it well. Ashley just says that she's going to give him the benefit of the doubt this time. And Giselle is like, okay. But in her confessional, she's like, well, Ashley better be careful because we know how Michael is. And I'm like, as true as all of that is, Giselle, it's just inappropriate for you to go to her with that. It really is. But, I mean, shit, it's true. So Ashley tells Giselle, you were noticeably missing from the party, and it was a good party. And she asked how'd everything go. They got into talking about Mia's reconstructive surgery on her clit or whatever. And Ashley says that it wasn't due to childbirth, and so she just must have flappers. She got sheets flapping in the wind. They got a kick out of that. And she proceeds to tell her that Mia said that Giselle, once she found out that Giselle wished death upon Ray, she must just be a pretty face. And Giselle was confused because she said, Mia has been texting me and Robin left and right, like there's no issue. And Ashley's like, she didn't say that she called you just a pretty face? Well, of course not. So Giselle is like, no, she didn't. And in a confessional, she's like, listen, I need Mia to pick a place and don't flip-flop. How does she feel about me? And do I have a beautiful soul, or am I just a pretty face? Pick one and let's go, because I'm giving you the side eye. So Giselle shares how when she was pregnant with the twins, she was just quite lonely because everyone was checking on the twins and everyone just wanted the twins and they weren't concerned about her. And she said maybe Ashley's feeling the same way. And she says, well, it doesn't matter even if you're not. I planned this Pamper Ashley party. So she's like, I plan on inviting everyone except for people that I don't like, which is Karen Huger. And Ashley says, well, I would request that she is invited. And Giselle is like, okay, she's invited. And she's like, is Mia coming? And Giselle says, do you want Mia to come? Yeah, I think that would be good. She says, I like the way that she's upfront about things. And Giselle is like, well, who gets their clit done? She's like, I've been asking around. And I'm like, yeah, so basically you're clowning her behind her back. If you've been asking around, you've been asking around for a reason, and you have to tell them, oh, because this girl I just met, Mia, got hers done. So she's shady. She's mad that Mia called her just a pretty face, but you've basically been clowning her behind her back as well, Giselle. Come on. So then they get a good laugh out of who gets it done. Ashley says porn stars, and yeah, they laugh at that. So now we're in Robin's mom's warehouse, and Robin is doing her hats and says she kind of fell behind, no stuff. So Robin has a friend, Ascala, that comes to help her package hats, and Ascala's looking at the hats and wants to try them on, and Robin is like, if you do a good job, then you can have one. And she's like, yay, my compensation. I'm like, girl, please. Then Wendy comes to join them. So Robin tells Wendy that they are African sisters, and they're like, oh my God, where are you from? So Wendy says she's Nigerian. Ascala's Ethiopian. They both have on heels, and Robin's like, neither one of you came to work. And Wendy's like, I just have on my Gucci basics, and she has on her Louboutins, and she's like, oh, my kind of girl. So Robin is saying how her line Embellished really blew up, and she's, trying to figure out how to get it all done because she doesn't want to go into debt again. Then Wendy says, oh, Robin, I didn't tell you that I want to go into Home Essentials. And Robin is like, no. And then in her confessional, she's like, Home Essentials? Really? What happened to professor, political commentator, and now Home Essentials? Girl, that just don't go. And I'm like, Robin, you just shut the hell up. Even though I don't see it for Wendy, I don't see it for Robin either. And Robin, if somebody wants to do something to make money, if that could be her side hustle, then who are you to tell her it's not? Who cares about hats with silk lining if they're not cute, number one, and number two, all y'all wear wigs, so none of you all needed to protect your real hair because your real hair is under a wig cap. So Wendy asked why she didn't come to Karen's event, and she says Juan didn't want to go. So how was it, Wendy? And she says, interesting, because Mia was there. And then we cut to Mia. So Mia sits down with her husband, have a glass of wine. They're talking a little business. And then she gets a text about the party for Ashley. And she's like, yeah, that's interesting. And then she proceeds to tell him what happened at the party, because he said he didn't hear anything. They were in there having guy talk. So she's telling how Wendy, pretty much came at her. And then we go back to Wendy, who's telling Robin and Ascala exactly what happened. And of course, she's putting her spin on it so that Mia is wrong. So she told them she had to tell Mia to get her hand out of her face, and Mia said, what are you going to do about it? Then they show Ascala and her mouth is wide open like, what? And Wendy says, and the old me would have popped off, Robin. I would have. And I'm like, girl. And then she says, but Zen Wen. And then they like, Ascala says, oh, Zen Wen, I like that. So Robin is actually holding in her laugh. She didn't say anything about the Zen Wen thing, but on the inside, she's making fun of it and can't wait to go tell Giselle because she's shady as hell. And she's not really feeling Wendy like that. That's why I was surprised that Wendy came over to help her do this. And back to Mia and her husband talking. Her husband's like, yeah, I talked to Eddie. I really like talking to him. And Mia says he comes off as scared of her because when we were playing the game, he's going to tell her, or she let him know, no, you don't find anyone in this room attractive. And she's like, please, he could barely look me in the eyes when he saw me. And I'm like, really? That's what you want to tell your husband? Come on, Mia, I was trying to ride with you, but girl, calm down. her husband just cracked up laughing. So I guess that's fine. Maybe they're just like super secure, but I still feel like Mia needs to just calm down. She acts like she's putting 20 on 10 half the time too, with all of her super expressions as she's talking or whatever. Just speak, girl. So back over with Robin and the girls. Ascala asked, so what am I supposed to really, expect at this event? And Robin starts off with, well, Karen drinks a lot. And Wendy doesn't even look up, so that was kind of funny to me. And then she says, well, yeah, because when we were at Wendy's event, she's like, I'm trying to tell her, stop Karen from attacking Giselle. And Wendy, you tell me to be quiet. And so I was kind of thrown off by that. And Wendy's like, well, because the event was at my house and I didn't want anybody to feel ganged up on. So Robin says the Wendy that we met a year ago would have had Giselle's back because Karen was calling her all kind of names and she didn't say anything. And I'm like, Robin, when are you going to learn Giselle does not need anyone to have her back? She's a grown woman with a big mouth. She throws major shade, so she has to be able to take it as well. Wendy is not there to defend Giselle, and neither are you. That's your job, so don't look for Wendy to do it. So Wendy just says, listen, I'm Zen Wen, I ain't in it. And Robin just rolls her eyes. So now we're at the house with Candice and the kids, and she's saying how she likes having them around and she's not so bad at it, which shows her that she won't be so bad at being a mom. So she goes over to the bar area where Chris is, and she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm trying to get the bar in order and all my empties. And he's like, look at all these empties. And Candice says, if my mom were to see this, she would be like, oh my God, you guys are drinking too much. And Chris says, I'm an adult. I'll drink when I want to. And I'm like, Candice, you do way too much with your mom. And like, why was that even necessary? Who cares what your mom would say? We don't need it. We don't care. And all of a sudden, what do you know? Her mom FaceTimes, and Candice is like, oh, you look so nice. She's like, I'm working. She turns the camera around to Chris so he can say hi. Of course, he's holding a drink, and her mom is like, you're drinking in the middle of the day? And he's like, yeah, and walks away. I'm like, Candice, ugh, that's all I can say is just Candice, and her mom, ugh. So her mom asks what they've been up to, what they got going on. Candice is just like nothing. And she says, well, me and Karen's supposed to be having tea so we can talk. And her mom says, just be careful. And Candice is like, yeah, I'd learned that you have to be careful with your friend. So Candice says that, she looks at Karen like a sister or an auntie, and she needs for her to, pretty much say she's sorry for defending reprehensible bullshit. And I'm like, that's very specific. So it sounds like if Karen doesn't say exactly that, then Candice is still going to have an issue with her. So her mom asks how the music's going, and she goes, it's going well. And actually, did I tell you that Chris is my manager? I call him my husbander. And her mom says, okay, good luck with that. And Candice is like, what does that mean? That was really passive aggressive. So her mom says, well, when you have a husband that quits his job and then wants to manage you, and he's, all over your money. And she says, listen, we are a team no matter what, if he's my manager or just my husband. So it doesn't matter. And her mom is like, okay, well, it's your life. And she's like, yeah, just remember that. You guys, I just think Candice talks too much. I do. I think she doesn't learn to take social cues and figure people out and learn how to deal with people accordingly. I mean, I know it's hard not to tell your mom certain things or like really take offense or, just take whatever her mom says with a grain of salt. That's what she needs to do because she knows how her mom is. So if you're going to continue to tell her things about your life, which I guess it would be hard not to, you just got to know that your mom is shitty and she's going to say something shitty. So now we're over at Karen's house and Wendy comes over and they talk about how they're in a different place. Wendy says that, yeah, last season, she, wasn't really feeling Karen, but now, she understands that Karen is a grown-up and she's an adult and she, has multiple businesses and she can learn a lot from her. So they go downstairs and Karen has some kind of sushi and Wendy's like, Karen, what the hell is this? And she's like, where's the Nigerian food? And Karen's like, are you going to teach me how to cook it? And I'm like, how rude. Y'all, I'm just not feeling Wendy. I'm beyond not feeling Wendy. I didn't like her last season for different reasons than this season. But we'll get to it because I'm probably going to go on a little rant about Wendy. I don't like her. So Karen says, Wendy, you're in a different place this year. And she's like, yeah, I'm Zen Wen. And she's like, I have struggles, but I've embraced my struggles. And Karen is like, well, struggles where? Because I don't see it. And she's like, well, I just want to be like Martha Stewart, the Black Martha Stewart. I want to have towels and, rugs and everything. And Karen's like, okay, that's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So wait a minute. They did a flashback of the reunion. And you guys, I totally forgot about this part. Wendy was trying to say that she and Karen didn't get along because basically she didn't kiss Karen's ass. She's like, I didn't need her as a mentor, and that's why she didn't take to me. But look at this. Suddenly she needs her as a mentor. And Karen is like, yeah, and I'm very honored to mentor Wendy. And I'm like, Wendy, you should feel like total crap with this whole thing because you were talking big stuff last season. And now look at you, groveling at Karen's feet, asking her to be your mentor. So Karen starts asking her all kinds of questions about her business. Did you write out a business plan? Wendy says she wrote about a paragraph. And Karen is like, really? Like, that's not enough. And then she's like, who's your partner? Eddie. Eddie's just going to give you the money, apparently. I don't think he's your partner, but okay. And then she says, well, whatever your budget is, double it. So Wendy hands her the candle. Karen smells it. She likes it. She says it's very classy. And it's called Onye or something like that. And Karen is like, well, what is that? And who knows that? And she's like, yeah, I don't know. Nobody knows it yet. And she's like, well, what would make other people pick up your candle instead of a different candle? And she's like, that's what I'm afraid of. And she does all this whining. And Karen is like, no, listen, when you come to me, you're going to get real advice. I'm not going to hold your hand. And Wendy's like, I'm already struggling with my first budget and you're telling me to double it. I don't know if I can do this. And doubling her budget would be $40,000. And I'm like, Wendy, you can do this. Your freaking husband is a doctor. You guys, y'all got it. Stop it. So yeah, Karen just tells her, you need to go to work. And she's like, yeah, I need to go to work. So now we're back at the house with Mia and G, and she's telling us about her oldest son, and they have joint custody, her and her, I guess, ex-husband. Did she call him her ex-husband, or maybe that was just her baby daddy or co-parent? I don't know. But she says how he gets along with G, so that's good. Then she asks if her mom should come back over, and her husband says, yeah, that was fun. So Mia and her husband goes into the bedroom to talk about her relationship with her mom, and he says, I can tell that there's still something a little bit there. And she says, well, she gave me life, and that's just kind of it. That's just kind of where it stops. And then she gets into her story of her parents both having drug issues, and she ended up going into foster care. She says she lost contact with her mom for about 6 years, and she says she thinks she was embarrassed about losing her, but she would write her and she wouldn't hear anything back. And then she says, or if she did, I wasn't getting her letters. So she said she remembered one Christmas Eve she was laying on the floor waiting on her mom, and then she said she never came. And I'm like, girl, sounds like those tears because they never came. And he's like, well, how old were you? And she says around 6, but she realized then that she didn't have a mom. So it was sad. Even though she didn't have any tears, she just had the cry voice, but it was still sad. Sad story. He asked if they ever talked about it, and she says, no, I tried, but she cries. And she says right now her relationship with her mom is non-existent, and she tries to work through things with her, but she doesn't really want to talk about it. So she says she's just waiting for her mom to kind of open up and talk about things because she feels like they really need to get it out in order to get to that bond. And her husband, very supportive, says, I think at some point one of you are going to find a way to get to the point where you can talk about it and get past everything. So I thought that was sweet. So now we're sitting down for tea with Candice and Karen, and Niall, I think that's her name, she's sliding down the stairs, and Candice is like, are you going to slide down or no? And Karen is like, just let her do her thing. So she ends up going back upstairs. So Karen says, I really like this look for you. This house really has good juju. And Candice says, yeah, there's just positive vibes in this house. So Karen tells her, it's not just the house, it's you. You seem to have a certain kind of peace. And Candice says, yeah, I do have a certain peace. And this conversation is kind of adding to it because I've been wanting to have this conversation. And I feel like I'm at a point where we can talk and move forward. So Candice asks her, so I feel like I've heard you say continually that you were torn and you were having a hard time with it as well. And then we do all these flashbacks to Karen saying how she's in the middle and it's hard for her. So then Candice says, so what was really the problem with you? Like what were you struggling with? And Karen says, well, did you not see the way that I was attacked for, not taking a side? I actually forgot to add that Karen started off the conversation with saying that she would not do anything differently today. Had it happened today, she wouldn't have done anything differently. So as Candice is telling her that, I understand what you're saying, but why would you let outside influences have anything to do with what's going on with me as your good friend? And she says, I can't change the past. And Candice says, well, you already said that you wouldn't do anything differently anyway. And so Karen says, not at that time. And then we hear this music, doom, doom, doom. And then all of a sudden, Candice pulls out her tissue and she does her eye dab, her famous folded tissue eye dab that she always does. And every time she does it, it drives me crazy. I can't stand it. And I just want Candice to get it together. So it was kind of a sad scene because Karen says that she doesn't know what this means for their friendship now. And then Candice says, listen, I can't tell you that we're going to go back to how we used to be because as of right now, I don't trust you. And Karen says, okay, that's fair. And she kind of leaves at that. It was kind of sad because I really do think that Candice is sad about it. So Candice says that she came to the meeting with an open heart ready to receive, and Karen just didn't, or she's just not, she's not capable of being a friend. So she says that that's fine. She just knows how to handle her, and she's totally okay with pretty much just keeping it cute with Karen. So it's the day of the party, and Giselle is at the event, getting the balloons and everything ready, and in comes Candice. And they greet each other. Oh my God, I can't believe you're first. And they give her champagne. And then Giselle says, everything is in yellow because she's our little sunshine. And Candice says, okay. And then she says, I'm not going to say anything rude in her confessional. I'm not going to say anything rude. So she tells Giselle how she met with Karen, I guess, the day before, and she let her know that it was pretty much like, yeah, I wouldn't change it, and, it is what it is. And she's like, Giselle says, I think that's effed up. So next in is Wendy and her boobs, and she comes in and she gives them the phoniest hug and kiss. And you guys, Wendy is totally different this season. I'm telling you, she is just feeling herself so much that it's ridiculous. She was feeling herself for different reasons last season. It was because she had 29 degrees, and this time it's because she got her body done. And she's looking at them like she don't know them, don't like them. Like she's looking at them like just any chick on the street would look them up and down like, hey, how are you? Like she's already looking at them like she don't like them. And I'm like, what the fuck is up with Wendy at this point? So Giselle says, okay, Wendy, sit down with your new booty. And then in her confessional, she says, okay, Wendy, we got it. You got new tatas. We don't need to see them every single time we see you. Arriving next is Robin, and when she comes in the door, she and Candice are really happy to see each other. Candice is like, I haven't seen you in forever, so she's kind of jumping around when she hugs her, and Wendy is looking like, and I'm just like, ugh. And then Ashley comes in. So when Ashley wobbles in, she greets everyone. I can't remember if she and Candice gave each other a hug or whatever, but she sits down, and oh my God, her belly just looks like a basketball under her shirt. It's crazy. But she tells Giselle, thank you so much. Then Robin lets them know that she invited her friend Escala. And Wendy says, she's a Kiki. So Escala comes in and greets everyone. And apparently she just had a baby 2 months ago. And she looks fantastic. fantastic. And she gives Ashley a bottle of champagne, and she says, when I first had my baby, this is the first thing I wanted. And Ashley's like, is this a good bottle? Because I don't drink champagne. Is this good? And she's like, no, it's okay. And then she says, no, it's good. Because everybody around her is screaming, yeah, it's good. And I'm like, Ashley, you are so declassé. Is that a word? So next to arrive is Karen, and she makes a beeline for Ashley. She gives her a gift and tells her that this is in line with the other nesting gifts that she gave her. And in her confessional, she says, I have nothing for Giselle until she takes accountability of her lies. And then we have Giselle in her confessional saying, nope, not here for Karen. Like they totally ignore each other. Then the camera cuts to Wendy, who is sitting there rubbing her girls. And she's just creepy. Wendy just has issues. I can't even just say this season. She had issues last season as well, but I can't with Wendy. And Giselle says, girl, if you rub those boobs one more time. And last to arrive is Mia, and she greets everyone. Well, she greets Giselle, and Giselle, she hugs her with no problem, even though she has some questions for Mia. And then they show Wendy, and Wendy is looking pressed. Wendy is looking pressed, y'all. She's pressed by Mia for some reason. So Mia meets Askala, and the first thing she says is, oh, she's gorgeous, and gives her a hug. And I'm like, there you go. Secure women can compliment other women. Wendy, learn this. I'm sorry, but you definitely need to learn this. She's so insecure, even with her boob and butt job. So Mia very nicely speaks to Wendy as well, and Wendy says, oh, hey. And then in her confessional, she says, I'm open to, get to know Mia, but she can't be a flip-flopper. Oh, and she definitely can't put her hand in my face. Ugh. So Giselle does this whole guess who's pregnant or whose belly this is game, and it's just stupid. It's just stupid. And so the last picture was someone holding a flat belly, and everybody's like, huh? And Giselle is like, this is Candice. And then Candice says, okay, I have to explain. She's like, I was pregnant there with possibilities. And they all start laughing. So Askala is sitting next to Ashley, and she's asking when she's due, and Ashley's like, today. And Askala's like, oh my God, well then I pray for a healthy delivery and everything. So I like that about her. And then they were starting to take the first two back, and Giselle says, okay, Ashley and Askala can go back first. So Karen and Mia are sitting next to each other, and they're like, oh my God, it's good to see you. Haven't seen you since the party. Karen is like, well, did you enjoy? She says, yeah. Karen's like, yeah, because, there was an issue with you and Wendy, and I was so sorry about that. And she's like, where do you guys stand? And Mia's like, well, Wendy's here, so we can talk about it. And I do like that about her. She's not a punk. Mia is not a punk. So they start off talking about the whole hand in the face thing, and then Candice says, well, that can come off as threatening. And then Wendy says, don't ever try me like that again. So Mia says, okay. And then she says, well, let's talk about that. And as she's doing that, she's like having her hands up. And then Wendy is like, because once again, they're sitting right next to each other, and I don't know why. And Mia's like, well, I talk with my hands, so. And Wendy's like, well, I do too. But Mia says, well, just get used to it. And Wendy says, no, don't do that. Mia says, this is my demeanor. This is how I act. If you don't like it, then you can sit over there. And Wendy says, I didn't come for you because it was at Karen's house. So Wendy says, I didn't come for you at Karen's house because I have respect for people's houses. But today I have time. I am Zen Wen, so do not try to come for me, because what I do have and what I will always have is time. So tick tock, Mia. And Robin and Giselle are cracking up like, oh no, not Zen Wen. Wendy is out of control. She's like on this season. Like she's playing up for the cameras big time. It's not a good look. It's not a good look at all. At least I didn't like her last season, but I think she was being more herself then than this season, because this season she really is playing up for the cameras. I don't like it. I don't like her. So Wendy tells her, you're dismissed. I have time today. And Giselle says, this is not Zen Wen. And she's like, oh yeah, this is Zen Wen. So Mia says, clearly she's unhappy at home. And Wendy says, no girl, you're unhappy at home. That's why you need to get your clit fixed. And then Candice screams like she's 12. And Mia gets up and says, I don't have time for small-minded people. And Wendy starts yelling, you're dismissed. So Mia and Karen are taken to the back because it's their turn now, and Ashley and Ascala are getting ready to leave. Mia goes in and she's like, for somebody to be all about women's empowerment, she is something else. And Karen tells them, yeah, they just got into it. Ashley says, well, I thought they were out there laughing. And then we cut back to Giselle in the room with Wendy, and she's telling her, look, Wendy, it's okay for you to get your shit off. I mean, she didn't say it that way because that's my words. But she was saying, you got to let her talk. You got to let her get a word in edgewise, or else you're just looking stupid. She didn't say that either, but So Wendy says she was saying a lot, and she was putting her hands in my face. Giselle, can we please stop the banter here? And again, Wendy is next level Wendy this season. She just really is. So then Wendy says she just guessed that Robin and Giselle don't know anything about loyalty because she was actually defending Giselle the whole time. And I'm like, Giselle's name never came up once. So how are you defending her? Really, how are you defending her? So yeah, we get to the other ladies that are getting pampered, saying how it's supposed to be a good evening, but of course they're ruining it. Karen says, well, when you have Satan throwing the party, this is what happens. So they take the other two back and bring Ashley and Ascala back out. So they're out there with Giselle and Robin, and Giselle is trying to tell Ashley what just happened, and she's like, we're trying to get to the bottom of what happened with Mia. And Wendy's all like, get your hands out my face. And then Ascala's like, Zen Wen? And they're like, yeah, Zen Wen. And she's like, that's not the Wendy I know. And then we then we have Candice telling Wendy exactly what she needed to hear. She says, I just hate for Mia to think that she can get under your skin like that and get a reaction out of you. And my thing is, Mia hasn't tried to get a reaction out of Wendy. Wendy just comes with a reaction, period. And Wendy's like, no, I'm in a good place. I'm Zen Wen, if we hear that one more time. And in the confessional, Candice is like, listen, Wendy, she's like, I just hate that she feels like she has to puff her chest out whenever Mia's around. And she's like, girl, you need to sit back and relax. She's like, your boobs are too new. You're going to pop a tit or something. And I just think it's interesting that Candice sees that Wendy is pressed whenever Mia is around, because Candice has actually been there all 3 times. And Candice can see that this girl is not doing anything to Wendy. Wendy is just pressed. Then we have Giselle and Robin saying they're telling Ashley how they would like to just get to know Mia without Wendy and Karen around. And I personally don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because it's not like you really want the green-eyed devils on your back. If they get you together, then they're going to double team. And Giselle hasn't had a chance to ask her about that whole just a pretty face thing. So I figure when they get her alone, that is exactly when they are going to pounce. So now all the women are in the waiting room talking, and Ascala says, yeah, and so I heard you drink a lot, talking to Karen. And I'm like, how random is that? And then they do the flashback to Robin telling her that Karen drinks a lot. And I'm like, who does that? So Karen says, well, we can clear this up. I think it's very reckless to call someone a drunk. And then they do a flashback to her calling Giselle a drunk. And then she says, listen, I love these girls, and I will call them from my house party and talk to them for hours. And all the girls are like laughing under their breath at the fact that Karen is just a liar. And so Ashley says, yeah, it'd be a party of one. So then we find out that Mia did meet her guy at the strip club, and she says someone called him and said, we have a new girl here serving up some great drinks. He came on over, and she says, shortly after serving drinks, I did become a stripper. And everybody's looking like, interesting, because she definitely said she was a bartender when she met him at the other party. So Karen said, well, I thought that when you said that you were a bartender, that then later on you would say that you took to the pole. And she says, but honey, I don't do the pole. It's a gentleman's club. It's a 5-star restaurant. She says the girls wear long gowns. They don't have a pole or anything because the company doesn't want that stigma. She says most of the times her clients didn't even want her to take her clothes off. They just wanted to pay her for her time. And Giselle says, like an escort. She says, yeah. They say, but escorts have sex for money. She says, I don't know anything about that. And then the music goes, boom. These people are stupid. So Ashley then says, listen, I've been to one of those strip clubs before, and they definitely don't wear ball gowns. They wear gowns, but something is showing, either the front part or the boobs or something, but a moneymaker is showing. Cha-ching, cha-ching. And Candice says, you did something for that old geezer to take you up to the penthouse. So Karen says, ain't no shame in it. She says, actually, I was thinking about getting one of those little retractable poles. And I'm like, girl, you're going to break your neck. Don't do it. She says, and I was going to have Mia come over and show me how to do it. And I'm like, she just told you she don't do the pole. What are you talking about? So then Giselle says she has to leave. So she's the first to leave her own party. And of course, Karen has something to say about that. And Karen says Giselle leaving her own party early is nothing new, and it's not a surprise. She's not a host, she's not a dresser, and she's not a wig wearer. And then Ascala wants to do a prayer for Ashley before everyone leaves, and that's pretty much the end, which I thought was really sweet for her to want to do that. But this is a super long review. If you are still here, thank you so much. You are the real MVP. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you back here for the next video. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Smooches!